So thanks everybody for coming on today. Today's webinar is going to be talking about essentially what is predictive content and how can we best use it. I'm going to be your speaker today. So I'm one of the lead consultants here at JTF Marketing. And so today's content, we're going to be covering off the following. So we're going to start off with what is predictive content in Marketo Engage. And then we're going to take a bit of a look at what are the example use cases and how we can best use predictive content to our advantage. We're then going to walk through how we can potentially set up predictive content. And then we'll also finish off with talking about how we can measure success and also some of the key gotchas and how to tackle them. We've also got a poll running in today, which is basically asking what was your main reason coming along, but also feel free to add any questions as we go along. And hopefully, if we have time at the end, we'll be able to cover some of your questions. What is predictive content? So predictive content uses machine learning and algorithms. And in order to do that, it then is able to use predictive analytics to analyze user behavior and also historical engagement data. It also uses other relevant factors to develop essentially what is the most relevant content for each individual at the right time. With that, it helps marketers to deliver that personalized experience and also to help you to present content recommendations to target your audience based on their interests and their preferences and also their behavior. When we think about some of the key things of what predictive content can do, it can provide you with content recommendations. And so the system suggests the most relevant pieces of content, so things such as blog posts, articles, white papers, and videos. And this can then be presented to each individual based on their past interactions and also the profile data in Marketo. It then allows you also to personalize. So predictive content essentially allows marketers to personalize your user experience by dynamically displaying content that aligns with each prospect stage and their buyer's journey. And most critically, and probably one of the key advantages of predictive content, is it allows you to A/B test. So as a marketer, you want to best learn what works best. And so you can use A/B testing to compare the performance of different types of content variations, which predictive content suggests to you, and then allows you to optimize content to deliver more effectiveness. And also, lastly, but certainly not least, is the performance analytics. So as an AI platform, it provides you with the insights and analytics on the performance of the recommended content, which then allows you to assess how well the recommendations are resonating with your audience. When we think about how we could potentially automate and use the tool, some of the key things is it allows you to auto-discover. So you don't necessarily have to trawl through your entire website and content to necessarily decide what is best and what you think your audience would most like to see. Marketo does that for you, and it's able to identify everything from your website for all different content types and give you the power to then choose what is allowed to be used. With that, you can then learn and engage. So with predictive content, it'll use the AI to then identify the right content to display at the right time to the right audience. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier on, it allows you to analyze. So you can then gather the insights to then be able to make all the right decisions going forward and then also take the right steps to be able to optimize all of your content. When we look at some of the example use cases, predictive content could be used across 3 different areas. 2 of the main ones that we see before you are email and rich media. So when we think about email in particular, it allows you to choose the relevant content, and then you can then enable your email templates to be able to use predictive content, and you can then choose the modules that you want to use most. So for example, in the one that we have on the screen before us, this is using our 2-column module. And so you can then choose the content you want to display and then enable your email template to display this particular content in this module. And you can then also choose how it's then displayed. So in this example, we're using a button label across the image. We also have a title and a description. This can all be activated from the platform and the job essentially is done. You can also repeat the same exercise with rich media. And so across the key areas of your website, you can then display the key content that you want to based on what you're allowed to display, and then pick the pages and then enable. With these examples, we've chosen our webinars and also key CTAs to allow you to, for example, register for specific events. When we think about setting up predictive content, there's several things rather, that you should probably consider as part of your checklist to get everything all together and ready to go. So the first thing is to set the algorithm. So you need to essentially define what the audience sets are that you're going to use and be able to then allow the AI to then define who it should then target. You then need to create the content patterns. And so with the content patterns, it's then analyzing which of the key areas of your website and your content that you want to allow to display, and then enable the platform to do its job. One of the key fundamental parts is the JavaScript deployment. And so unfortunately, predictive content won't automatically just happen. You need to enable it across the different areas of your media that you use within Marketo. So for example, you would need to deploy a JavaScript to your website and allow the specific pages to display the different content based on what you set in the platform. And then also with emails in particular, you would need to enable that content to be allowed to use predictive content, and also which type of modules as well. Other key things that you need to do is to add the content itself. So enable the pages that you want to display. You need to obviously optimize the content, and also you need to be able to approve the content that you want to display as well. When you're actually in the platform itself, it pulls through all of the key pages that it sees and deems that are most visible to be allowed to be enabled. And so you can then pick and choose those pages and then select whether it's available for email and also rich media. And also if you want to use banners, you can also enable those on your website as well. And the last thing is probably the most important part is once you've got everything all set up and it's displaying across your different mediums, it's the review stage. So reviewing all those analytics and then using the results to dictate what your next steps are. As I mentioned, there is a bit of setup that you need to do as part of this process. So with email in particular, you will need to update your email template and allow your modules to display predictive content when using the email editor. For example, when you're in the email editor, there will be an option to adjust the settings to then enable it to allow that particular piece of content in that particular module there and then. And with your website as well, you'll also need to deploy the JavaScript to the relevant pages to then allow your predictive content to work across your different pages on your site. Some of the common gotchas in this when deploying predictive content, as you see on the screen, is URL structure. So this is very critical in allowing that the content is then discoverable. So creating consistent URL structures, which allows the platform to then read through your media and then make the best recommendations for you to then use as part of your deployment. Layouts in particular for predictive content in email and rich media need to be in order. And so identifying those key modules, for example, in email templates that would be most suitable. So for example, whether you want to use a hero module with a hero article, or you want to use something like a 2-column or 3-column module to display multiple pieces of predictive content as you then send it out to your clients. You also need to make sure that conversion rates are only populated when you use forms. And so with that, if you are going to direct people to specific pages and you want to then to discover the analytics there afterwards, you then need to also have a form there which allows people to enter their information and allows them to then be a known person in your database. And as it would probably appear obvious, you will need probably some web team experience, which will allow you to then enable the JavaScripts, as we mentioned earlier on, to be deployed across your site pages that you want to enable for predictive content. And also, it is quite hard to show examples like dynamic content in email. So it's entirely up to you, and it's obviously how you choose to personalize. When we think about predictive content and one we just talked about just now, in summary, essentially what it does is it allows you to present the most relevant content in order to drive engagement and to obviously to those individuals across your email or your website. When we think about how it works, it is very similar to dynamic content, but with predictive content, you can allow certain elements within email are assets to be intelligent. So using the analytics that you gather as part of the content across your website is then captured in predictive content to then display the right content at the right time. When we think how we can use it, it can not only be displayed as personalized content with a defined template, but it can also display specific content based on predicted engagement. It can also it could also be displayed as a recommendation bar. So for example, if you want to showcase a particular blog based on a specific preference prediction, you can then display that on the key spaces on your website. Okay. Well, I just put on the slide deck here just a QR code, which allows you to actually pre-register for the new predictive content course that I mentioned earlier on. So if you scan this QR code on your screen just now, you can register for our course. And when it's then released, you'll be notified, and then you can have a first stab at obviously accessing that course. So I'll give you a second just to wrap that just now. And I'll hopefully speak to you soon. Thanks so much.